afternoon and welcome to Shannonville Motorsports Park near Belleville, Ontario, and the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. Hello everybody, I'm Joe Tilley along with Pat Gonzalez for round 5 of this 8-race series. Pat, the rain and this unique track is going to give the spectators a different perspective here today.
Joe, Shannonville has always been a great place to watch a race, but here in the wet, it's going to be spectacular. The fans can see about 90% of the racetrack, which is great. And for the drivers, it's a big difference running here at Shannonville on this very flat circuit as opposed to running on the up and down tracks such as Mosport and Tremblant. But the one driver who's got a big advantage here at Shannonville is Richard Spenard because, of course, he teaches a car school here throughout the week. And yesterday, we asked Richard about what were the tough spots on the circuit.
First of all, it's a 4-kilometer track, which is very similar to the length of Mosport, if you want to compare. But if you take Mosport, for example, it has 7 corners where you have to work hard. Here we have 14, which means you have more brake, more downshift to do, more acceleration. You don't have any time to relax, basically. So therefore, obviously, it's more difficult to go through 14 corners in one lap than going through 7. So it's a very technical track and a very difficult track.
Technical and difficult. Those two words exactly describe this 4-kilometer, 14-turn circuit that you see outlined here. The track was recently doubled in length, resurfaced, and it's proven to be a great test of driver ability.
Those dots are the camera locations for today's race as we watch the action from Richard Spenard's Porsche. You can see that Richard is really having to work the car as he tries to find the fast line around Shannonville in these very wet conditions on the Pirelli P0 rain tires. It's actually the first time that these tires have been used on the Porsches.
Some of the pictures you have just seen have been provided by our onboard Sony Handycam cameras. Here's Pat with more.
If you've been watching our series, you will have seen a driver's view of each of the tracks that we visited from video recorded on a camera like this. This Sony Handycam is a Super 8 camera that's located inside 6 of our Porsches. The camera is put in a lightweight mount, then bolted to the roll cage. The Sony Handycams are moved from car to car at each race, and for the first time, Jacques Bienvenu will be carrying one of these cameras aboard his car. It'll be interesting to see the pictures we get from Jacques' car that'll be starting back in the 3rd row in our 16-lap race here at Shannonville.
Thanks, Pat. We're going to take a look at the championship point standings in just a minute. But first, I wanted to point out a very generous gift that Scott Goodyear and the Pop 84 FAF team are making to the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. 5% of the team's winnings are going to this non-profit charitable organization, and so far they're doing pretty good. Goodyear has taken 3 of the first 4 races. Let's take a look at the championship point standings heading into race number 5. Goodyear leads with 96 points, followed by rookies Stephane Proulx, Spenard, Case Nierop, and Laporte with 64. Then it's Claude Gu and Jacques Bienvenu tied with 58, followed by Malcolm and Champion with 51 each, then Chris Gleason in 10th spot with 47.
Some 28 drivers have scored points so far in this year's Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. And of course, over the 3 years, there's some $1.3 million in prize money that'll be divided up among all the drivers. We'll be back at Shannonville Motorsports Park with round 5 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup in a moment.
Welcome back to a wet Shannonville Motorsports Park and the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. The 24 starters today are on the pace lap with almost 0 visibility for the drivers in the back. Here's Pat Gonzalez with the starting grid.
On the pole position, the rookie Stephane Proulx alongside will be Case Nierop in the Poly Voltec Porsche. In the 2nd row, Richard Spenard, who knows this track perhaps better than any other driver, and the series points leader Scott Goodyear, who'll start from the outside of row 2. On the inside of row 3 will be Rick Vai in the Reebok Porsche, and outside Jacques Bienvenu. With all of his endurance racing experience in the wet, he should be very strong today. Row 4, Chris Gleason and Dirk Homan. The 5th row, Raymond David and Richard Laporte. The 6th row, Lily Avra and Uli Bieri. The 7th row, Cam Champion and David Deacon. In the 8th row, Claude Gu and Pierre Desmarais. The 9th row has Brian Malcolm and Norman Boyer. In the 10th row, Reinhold Schill, David Seabrook. The 11th row, Zav Aberman and Len Campbell. In the 12th row, Ted Powell and Ludwig Heimrath. The drivers out of the final turn looking for the starter to give them the green, and they're underway racing through turn number 1 as the green flag comes out. And as you said, Joe, visibility very difficult as the cars run this close together on the opening lap. It is Stephane Proulx, 65, side by side into turn 1. Proulx will take the lead over Nierop, and it is number 1, Spenard, who slips through into second. Proulx, your leader, Spenard in second. Nierop runs third as they run it off of turn 3. Here is Nierop pulling back up to the outside of Spenard into the Shannonville carousel, but Spenard will hold on to that second place position. He pulls right up on the rear bumper now of Stephane Proulx through turn 5 as they head up to one of the most difficult sections of the racetrack here. Through that left-hander at turn 5. Coming up will be the double apex left-hander at turn 6. A very precise line here in the wet, but it is Proulx who grabs the lead here on the opening lap. Spenard followed by Nierop in the third place spot. And then the battle for fourth really tightening up here. Scott Goodyear has moved through into the fourth place position.
Pat, these drivers qualified when it was dry yesterday, so they didn't have a chance to test those rain tires until this morning in the warm-up, so they're not prepared for this.
You're on board Rick By, the fifth place driver, as he chases down Scott Goodyear into the S's here at Shannonville, into the hairpin. It is Proulx, 65, leading Richard Spenard, number 1, then Case Nierop, followed by Scott Goodyear, and then Rick By.
You may have noticed that the drivers are not taking their normal lines. When the rain falls, there is rubber and oil on the track that the drivers try to avoid so they can get a little bit of traction.
At the end of the back straightaway, Spenard, who pulled to the inside of the racetrack, now will tuck in line through turn 11 at the end of that back straightaway. But Spenard on the back straight moved to the inside of the racetrack to avoid the rooster tails coming off of the rear tires there of the leader, Stephane Proulx. They're through the chicane into the famed Allen's Corner here at Shannonville, a very tight left-hand turn, and then come through the final right-hander that'll bring them back onto the start-finish straightaway.
And that's one spot on the track the drivers have to be very careful. The only spot where there's a concrete retaining wall. One mistake there and you bang up that $100,000 plus Porsche pretty good. And that's the view you talked about earlier, Pat, through Jacques Bienvenu's windshield. Jacques in sixth spot, just going into quarter 1. And I think these scenes give the fan a better idea of what it's like to handle a 250 horsepower race car in the rain than anything that we could tell you about. Look at his reactions, Pat.
Moving that steering wheel back and forth to steer and balance the car. You're back with the leader, Stephane Proulx. As he comes out of the carousel, you can see Proulx sliding the car as both Proulx and Spenard pushing their Porsches right at the limit. Through turn 5, it's about 4 or 5 car lengths separating the two Motormaster Downtown Fine Cars competitors, and now the third place driver is definitely closing on them. There you see the action from Rick By's car.
I had a chance to speak to the Reebok driver, Rick By, just before this race got underway, and he felt confident about his chances running on this wet track.
The traction on the track is remarkably good on the dry line. Generally at a racetrack, the dry line gets polished very much, and we have to drive a fair bit wider than the line and find out where the traction is. This racetrack seems to have very good traction on the dry line, so everybody's going to be fast. The forward vision out of the car isn't bad. The rear vision is nil. We can't see anything out the mirrors, so passing is going to make it be very difficult.
There is Uli Bieri. He has run into some difficulty involved in an incident with Pierre Desmarais. Bieri continues out on the racetrack. Your leader continues to be Stephane Proulx. Spenard in second. Nierop, Goodyear, and Rick By round out the top 5. In sixth is Jacques Bienvenu, Chris Gleason, Dirk Homan, Cam Champion, and Jacques Liliev round out the top 10. Spenard all over Stephane Proulx, back into the hairpin. Case Nierop is right there. Scott Goodyear has closed, and Rick By has also made up some ground. There's the sixth place driver, Bienvenu, on the inside. 75, Chris Gleason, right behind Bienvenu, fishtailing as he puts the power on, going down the back straightaway. Spenard chasing down Stephane Proulx, followed by Case Nierop, Scott Goodyear, Rick By, then a bit of a gap on the racetrack back to Jacques Bienvenu. You're on board Richard Spenard's Porsche as he muscles the steering wheel, dropping a gear into Allen's Corner and right up onto Stephane Proulx. This is a section of the racetrack where you can make up ground under braking. They're back onto the start-finish straightaway here at Shannonville, and a good crowd here despite the inclement weather. Back up across the start-finish line. There is Proulx, the leader, Spenard, as they go through turn 1, one of the fastest right-hand corners on the racetrack. Rick By in that Reebok Porsche is hanging right in there with the other 4 drivers, and at this point, the drivers pushing the traction to the limit.
This is a home track of Richard Spenard and Stephane Proulx. They know it better than anybody else.
There is Richard Spenard on the inside of Proulx going into turn 3. Spenard has taken the lead. Proulx left the opening. Spenard pounces right on that number 65 Porsche to grab the lead. Out of the carousel, Spenard followed by Proulx 65. Case Neerup still holding on to that third place position. And there you can see as they come out of the carousel and step on the accelerator, the back end of the Porsche is starting to weave just a little bit, but the drivers rebalancing the cars and keeping them well under control in these very wet, difficult conditions.
Well, there's a driver who should know his way around here. It's Raymond David, the Shannonville track owner, who's now in 11th spot just behind David Deacon.
Good racing going on further back in the pack. You're back with the leader, Richard Spenard, as Stephane Proulx to within just a couple of car lengths. There you can see Spenard getting a little wide through turn number 9. They're back into the hairpin. And Case Neerup 3, along with Scotty Goodyear number 9, have both closed up.
We're inside the car of Jacques Bienvenu. You can see him wrestling with that steering wheel. Let's see how he handles the approach to the hairpin.
Bienvenu getting a little bit sideways there, straightens it up, back up through the gearbox now as he runs down the back straightaway. There you can see some of the ferocious action further back in the pack. That is David Deacon, 44. He puts a couple of wheels off the racetrack. That is 29. Reinhold Schillo gets it sideways for a moment. Jacques Bienvenu at the end of the straightaway, followed by Chris Gleason, 75, then Dirk Homan. Gleason having some problems there. He puts a couple of wheels off the racetrack, and Homan goes through to pick up the position. There is sideways. Stephane Proulx, number 65, gathers it back under control, but you're with the leader, Richard Spenard, as he works his way onto the start-finish straightaway here at Shannonville Motorsports Park. Proulx in second, Case Neerup third, Scotty Goodyear in fourth.
Rick By has dropped back considerably. I don't know if he's having mechanical problems or just trouble with the visibility here.
Spenard, number 1, your leader into turn number 2, followed by 65, Stephane Proulx, the front-running 4 drivers, still pretty tightly bunched here as Spenard leads them out of turn 3.
Number 1, Richard Spenard, the defending Rothmans Porsche champion, heads this field of 24 cars, and we'll be back with more from Shannonville right after this. Welcome back to Shannonville Motorsports Park and round number 5 of this $1.3 million series. I'm Joe Tilley with Pat Gonzalez at our first rain race in the series. And Pat, Scott Goodyear's running off the track just behind Case Neerup.
Scott was pushing it very hard, Joe, trying to stay up there with Case and perhaps pick up that third place position. But I think he just overdid it a little bit going into the S's. Here's the leader, Spenard, number 1, through the hairpin. 65, Proulx in second. Case Neerup, number 3, as he comes onto the straightaway, pulls to the side. Problems on the Case Neerup car. He is slowed on the back straightaway. Goodyear goes into third.
Scott Goodyear, like all the other Porsche drivers, hasn't had much experience on these new Pirelli P0 rain tires, and I asked him about the tires just after today's warm-up.
Well, it's the first time that I've been on the Pirelli P0s, and I think it's the first time a lot of competitors have been on the tires also, and they work excellent. They have tremendous grip. The track here is a little bit different in the rain than some other tracks that you would travel to, but there again, we've learned a lot with the track. We have to make another adjustment to our car for the race, and we learned that in the warm-up itself for the rain conditions. So coupled all that together, I think that we'll have a good outing. It's just a case of making sure we're there at the end, collect the points, and in a risky situation like this, you just have to weigh the risk-reward ratio, and we'll see what happens.
There is Case Neerup. He is coming down pit road. It looks like he has got a fire in the turbocharger on his Porsche. He will have to retire. His crew standing by with the fire extinguisher, and there's number 41, Raymond David, into the wall in turn 14. He's got it turned around, driving it through the puddles that have formed here on the inside of the racetrack from the heavy rains, and he will continue, but that'll drop him down a few positions.
Camp Champion has joined Case Neerup in the pit, so it looks like that Polyvoltaic Performance Cars team is out of commission.
Young David Tennyson in the CNS Yachts Porsche continues to hold off Ludwig Heimrath and Len Campbell in car number 11. That's the red Porsche there. They're having their own battle further back. You're with the leader, Richard Spenard, in car number 1, the defending Rothmans Porsche Series champion, as he comes up on the number 35 Fujifilm Porsche of Ted Powell. He will lap him going through turn number 5. Stephane Proulx, though, stays right with Spenard. Proulx closing it back up. And it's just a few car lengths separating the front-running 2 drivers. Jacques Bienvenu is having a real battle here with Richard Laporte in car number 5, as they've been going back and forth here now for what is the 7th place position.
There's a race order with Spenard holding off Stephane Proulx, Scott Goodyear, the series points leader, Rick Bye in Calgary's Dirk Holman, who's having a tremendous race. In 6th is Chris Gleason, the only U.S. entrant, Bienvenu, Laporte, Deacon, and Jacques Lillier. Dirk Holman, Pat, has shown us that he can stay with the top drivers. I think he'll be one of our Porsche stars of the future.
Well, Dirk Holman's been running a car racing school here all season long at Shannonville, and he knows the track, and he's using it to his full advantage here today. There's Rick Bye, the 4th place driver, followed by Dirk Holman in the black Porsche number 50, as he has been doing a superb job. This would be his highest finish if he can hold on to that 5th place position. Then it's 75, Chris Gleason in 6th. Here's the battle for 7th as 89. That is Jacques Bienvenu off the racetrack. Bienvenu fishtailing as he gets back onto the power. And number 5, Richard Laporte, pulls right up alongside. They'll go side by side into turn 11 at the end of the straightaway. Bienvenu is off the racetrack. Jacques Bienvenu just got in way too hot into this turn 11 off the end of the straightaway. He does a nice job of gathering the car back up, gets it back onto the racetrack and continues, but that'll drop him down a position. Richard Spenard continues to hold off Stephane Proulx to the inside. Proulx looking for an opening, but Spenard shuts the door as they come onto the front straightaway, and the 2 teammates continue to battle at each other. It is Scott Goodyear in the 3rd place spot, Rick Bye running in 4th, and Dirk Holman back in the 5th place spot. It has become strictly a 2-car race right now, Joe.
As we mentioned before, this is the home track of Richard Spenard and Stephane Proulx. Right now, they're showing their experience on this track, running 1st and 2nd, nobody near them. And Dirk Holman, this is only his 2nd race in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, but he has a lot of experience on this track as well. He's running a strong 5th.
There were some doubters about Stephane Proux's ability to move out of the Formula 2000 car and into the Porsche 944 turbos, but I think he's certainly proving all his doubters wrong here today.
Here's a great view from the windshield of Richard Spenard, our race leader. He's driving remarkably well under these adverse conditions. Richard doesn't have to worry about the visibility problem. He's leading this race. I asked him if he could predict the outcome.
Stephane will be leading and probably going to be leading for the first part of the race. I'm going to try to hang back and see how he's going to do and put pressure on him, so maybe he's going to do a mistake. He's going to be very difficult to beat. He's very, very quick.
Richard Spenard through the S's. He has not hung back here at all today. He's gone to the front as he comes into the hairpin, but Stephane Proulx is right there waiting for perhaps Spenard to make a mistake, and he will be right there for the lead. Spenard up through the gearbox on that Porsche, approaching over 100 miles an hour now along the back straightaway at Shannonville. There is the red number 29 car of Reinhold Schill, as he is involved in a close scrap here with number 6, Brian Malcolm. Malcolm looks to the inside. He'll pick up that position. So the racing as they come onto the back straightaway now very, very close. Schill goes off the racetrack. He'll get back on, but he'll lose another couple of positions. So not a good move there by Reinhold Schill, number 29. He's been put back about 2 or 3 positions. There is Stephane Proulx, number 65, as he continues to run in that 2nd place position. And we'll be back with the concluding laps of this Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup race from Shannonville in just a moment.
Welcome back to Shannonville Motorsports Park in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. I'm Joe Tilley with Pat Gonzalez, and we're into the final laps of this event-filled race.
89, Jacques Bienvenu running in 8th, just ahead of David Deacon, 44 in the yellow car, and behind him is Jacques Lelièvre, back in the 10th place spot. There are the leaders going by a slower car. That is number 17, David Seabrook. Spenard, number 1, continues to lead, but right with him is Stephane Proulx, and Proulx has closed it up here in the last lap or so. He is to within just a couple of car lengths as they run it back into the hairpin. Stephane Proulx to the inside of Richard Spenard. He'll take the lead. Almost some contact there between the 2 drivers. Spenard has to tuck in and follow Stephane Proulx down the back straightaway, but again, you saw Spenard go wide into the hairpin. Proulx dives in on the inside to take the lead. Into turn 11, Stephane Proulx at the end of the back straightaway has pulled out about 4 or 5 car lengths on Richard Spenard. So after leading for the last few laps, it is Richard Spenard, and you're on board with the Sony Handycam giving you the picture that he sees. There is Cam Champion's car being pushed away. He was a retiree earlier in the race.
Cam Champion and Case Nierop, both members of the Poly-Voltec team, out of the race, but these two teammates are definitely in it. They're leading first and second, Richard Spenard and Stephane Proulx.
It is Proulx up to the line. Spenard right there in second, and the way they've been going at each other, you wouldn't think that they were both racing under the same colors. There is Proulx, your leader, Spenard. Then number 8, Rick By, who's had a good run here this afternoon. He's back in the 4th place spot. Stephane Proulx just a car length ahead of Richard Spenard, number 1, as they come off of turn 3. Spenard into the carousel, dives it on the inside of Proulx, and Richard Spenard will take the lead away from Stephane Proulx. What a move by Spenard as he saw the opening, and he is definitely the faster driver through that section of the racetrack. Of course, we've seen Stephane Proulx a couple of times at the hairpin just before the back straightaway make his way around Richard Spenard. So this has been a seesaw battle here in the wet at Shannonville Motorsports Park. Richard Spenard, your leader. Stephane Proulx, it is strictly a 2-driver race as we've got just over a lap and a half to go. Rick By, you're on board the Sony Handycam providing the pictures as Rick By runs back in that 4th place position. Still a good distance back of the 3rd place driver, Scott Goodyear. Into the S's. Spenard by a car length over Stephane Proulx. Richard goes wide in turn number 9. There's Proulx down to the inside. He'll take over the lead at the hairpin. Spenard pulls up alongside now of Proulx. They'll go side by side down the back straightaway, and now Spenard will move back around into the lead.
If there's any question before as to how hard these two might want to push each other, I think they've answered it. They're really racing full out here, Pat.
At the end of the straightaway, again, Proulx will close up under braking. There you can see the margin, just 3 or 4 car lengths. And now, with just over a lap to go, it'll be which of the 2 drivers is willing to push it just a little bit harder to the checkered flag. Back through Allen's corner. Again, Proulx a little bit later going to the brakes as he closes up ground here again on Richard Spenard. The drivers back onto the front straightaway. They will get the last lap indication now from the starter. Into turn 1, it is Richard Spenard leading Stephane Proulx. But as we've seen before, Joe, Stephane has been very quick going into the hairpin out of the S's, and perhaps he's got one more move still to come on number 1 here, Richard Spenard. There is your leader. Again, Spenard will try to hold his line, try to block every attempt by Proulx to get back around. It's less than a lap to go now.
Defending series champ Richard Spenard has the experience, but he's getting all he can handle from former student Stephane Proulx, who's now right up alongside.
Side by side, Proulx will take the lead. Spenard appeared to get a little bit sideways coming out of the carousel, and Proulx got a good drive coming out. He will just walk by him into the lead. Stephane Proulx taking over the lead here from Richard Spenard on the last lap. There is the battle involving Jacques Bienvenu, David Deacon, and Jacques Lelièvre in the red Porsche there. They have been going back and forth all race long. It looks like that one will go right down to the wire. Richard Spenard trying to chase down through Allen's corner, the leader, Stephane Proulx. Just 1 corner to go. Proulx by a car length. Here's Spenard right up on his rear bumper as they come on the front straightaway. It is Proulx holding off Spenard. The checkered flag is out, and Stephane Proulx has won it here in the wet at Shannonville. Richard Spenard will finish second.
What a fantastic finish to our 5th Rothmans Porsche race, with the student surpassing the teacher to win his first race of the series. Proulx and Spenard are followed by Goodyear, Rick By, Holman, Gleason, Richard Laporte, Bienvenu, Deacon, and Jacques Lelièvre rounds out the top 10. Here's a tired but happy Stephane Proulx.
It was a battle basically of mistake in the rain. It's a real war. I mean, I do some mistake, he does some mistake. Whoever comes out the best out of it is the winner, but God, it was a very nice race. One of my best races I've ever done.
So Stephane Proulx wins his first race in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, and the overall championship point standings are a little bit tighter. Join us next time when we head back to Mont Tremblant. For Pat Gonzalez, I'm Joe Tilley. Good afternoon.